What's happening, folks? Welcome back to the channel. It's full-time reaction to Celtic 2. Dundee won after extra time in the Scottish Cup. Kenny, you talk about making hard work of it. My God, that was a tough watch. But I suppose we should start with the positives in that we're in the next round and the impact that Tounekti had on the game and that debut goal that saved us right at the death for Junior Adamu in normal time as well.
Yeah, it's just another unconvincing, precarious outing. I mean, Martin O'Neill has just he's been hung out to dry by the board in this last month, but nothing other than his ability to manage and instill resilience and to make subs at the right time. He's continuing to perform miracles in terms of our actual results. The amount of wins he's got relative to how he's been backed, the squad he's got, the state of the support that he's got in the stands because of the way his superiors have handled everything, all that thrown together for the results that he's pulled together, including tonight's, are verging on a miracle. And he deserves huge credit, him and his backroom staff, for dragging us through another huge moment in the season. I mean, the start of the first half, I get we're trying to rotate. We have to rotate. We can't continue to play what we believe is to be our strongest 11 for the remainder of this season because we're playing 2 games a week in the heat of a title battle. We have to try and rotate in games like this. But Hatate, Bernardo coming in, new signing Mavuka and Yang as your sort of forward 4 in behind the striker, we just get nothing out of any of them. I thought Yang was really erratic. Hatate, probably the best of the 4 in the first half, but really faded. I think it's clear Hatate's head has gone. Bernardo, I think, just is completely lacks any sort of match fitness or confidence. And it's just a symptom of how weak we've been in the transfer market that we're having to play these big games with that type of output as our sort of understudies. We should be playing people of pedigree who are coming in to try and win a jersey and get us through these games in a more convincing way. And that whole first half was just worrying in terms of our ability to create chances, because I think Kavanka has shown signs of what I think we need up front. He was coming short in that first half. Nice touches on the ball, making himself available, but the service was nil for all of the reasons that I've just stated. And we look weak at the back throughout that. You could tell that Dundee were playing with a bit of an edge and a bit of belief, probably because they knew that there was no real venom in the stands that were going to make them intimidated. Probably because they know that we're vulnerable, that Danda's a quality player, and he was playing with real freedom a lot in that first half. Basic balls into the box from corners were just causing real problems. I think Sinisalo, for all he's done, is reasonable as a reserve keeper. He's not good at cross balls, and I don't know if that's going to change. And we look vulnerable at cross, from set pieces all season, and particularly in that first half. So at half time, I was riddled with a bit of concern. It just lacked any conviction, and it just stretched right through in deep into the second half when they can always score from distance as they did. But the subs changed everything, and I don't think just Adamu and Tounekti for their sort of goal, game-changing contributions. I thought McCowan was good. I thought even Sirachi just gave us that bit of energy, that bit of edge that we needed. Tierney did well, to be fair. It wasn't like he was coming in and replacing one of our weak players, but Sirachi comes in with real energy. And James Forrest, we're still hanging James Forrest out there, having to place huge amounts of pressures on someone who's in his 17th year. He drags us out of these crucial moments. And, well, he didn't have a sort of goal-defining contribution. He just lifted us, I think, in a way that allowed us to build a bit of momentum. So, look, I don't know what Adamu's loan fee was, but he's already repaid it, because without that, he didn't do anything in the game, but without that wonderful little bit of intelligence under the almost incredible amount of pressure, we'd be sat here talking about, how devastating a blow it was going out the Scottish Cup this early. So, look, difficult to even digest the game at this sort of short notice, Paul. But my overarching feelings are it's just another huge feather in the cap for Martin O'Neill and his backroom team for the psychology that they have instilled in the side when he's been handed a dreadful, dreadful pack of cards by the board. We should be starting that game coming out of a January window with some more players of pedigree starting the match. We should be starting it with a full stadium. All of those things were in control of the people that Martin O'Neill reports to, and they've done none of it. And they were 3 seconds away from exiting the Scottish Cup at home early in the competition. and it's deplorable the way they've hung him out to dry. But he's got us through it, and we're in the hat. I'm not quite sure how, but we move on somehow with these results. But something's got to change. We've got to turn. We've got to get these cobbled together loan players in a way that can play with a bit more rhythm for us. And we've got to start playing with a bit more consistency, because we're getting the results, but it just feels like a pack of cards at the moment that's going to fall over.
Aye, it does, and I think it was a strange game because, as you say, we created nothing first half. We created very little second half as well. Actually, I think Tierney has a shot sort of midway through the second half. The keeper makes a decent save, but it's straight at him. It wasn't like we were carving Dundee open, and to give Dundee credit, I thought they defended well. I thought the way they set up sort of closed spaces and did make it difficult for us, but I thought we had to do an awful lot more than we did throughout the course of 96, 97 minutes before we carve out that chance for Adamu to get his equaliser. Kenny, I know before the game you were wondering why Dyson and Engels, who have both played a lot recently, were left out of the squad entirely and given a day off. And I think had we played that game against Aberdeen during the week, I expected there to be a good few changes. There probably slightly more changes than I thought there would be. But you were looking before, when Mvuka starts the game, I think Tounekti's maybe hard done by. And don't get me wrong, he's came on, he's been the match winner for us. Probably the first time in his Celtic career that he's been the match winner. He's set up the equaliser. He's gone on to score the winner. He's a great impact in the game. He probably felt unlucky not to start. Mvuka comes in for his debut on the right-hand side. You can never judge a player after one game, but I think it was a very disappointing 45 minutes. He miscontrolled the ball a couple of times. He looks quite lightweight as a player. Now you expect that of a winger, but to get hooked at half-time on your debut, I'm not sure if Martin O'Neill will maybe be kind to him and dress that up as I'm just having arrived this week and want to change things up. But I thought it was a poor outing for a debut from Mvuka.
What Kuhn left, £17 million for Kuhn. It's a key position for Celtic wide right. And we've just done nothing with it. If you look at him, and I don't want to sit here and slate Mvuka. The guy's just arrived in the country a couple of days ago. It's not his fault. But if you look at his pedigree, if you look at his statistics tell you everything. I think he's not done assist this entire season. And bringing him in and starting him on the right-hand side, you then move Yang, who's been doing well on the right, over to the left. So you're disturbing both wing positions. You're keeping Tounekti on the bench. And the only reason we didn't pay £3 million for him was because he couldn't get through a medical. This just seems like it's an absolutely unacceptable way to try and address a key position in the team where we had £17 million incoming months ago, and we're now going to a title battle with someone that doesn't have any pedigree and already just looks like they're going to potentially disrupt things. I don't know, Paul. It's a symptom of, when was he signed? With 30 minutes to go in the window or something, 11:30 at night he got announced after midnight. It's just a symptom of out of control, or typical out of control announcement that has been way down the pecking order, and we've simply got him in to save face. That would seem what it looks like to me. And I'm not sure why Dyson wasn't on the bench. Not putting players on the bench to give them a rest in totality. I'm sure the sports sciences are far more educated in this than me, but I was a bit surprised that he wasn't really just sat on the bench. How much fatigue would he really have gained by being sat on the bench to allow us the option to call upon him? Because as soon as Dundee scored, immediately in my mind, I thought, God, we need Dyson on here for a bit of energy and a bit of creativity. I don't know if he's maybe he is carrying a small knock, but O'Neill didn't suggest that before the game. So look, out wide's still a big problem. It's desperate that they're having to bring on Forrest with 45 minutes to go to get us out of a hole. It's unfair in James Forrest. So we're going to have to go with what we've got. The window's now slammed shut. We've done nothing of any real note about it. And we're going to have to get through the rest of the season with these wide players, of which you can only really say Dyson's a nailed-on one that's going to give you the required level of output. And even Dyson, we know his head's partly gone because he wants a move and he was a bit disillusioned by that. So it's not like he's playing sort of full tilt. So that's a big problem for us. In that first half, Yang was all over the place. I thought he was erratic. He was playing more on the right-hand side than he was on the left. The whole thing was dysfunctional because of the wingers, and they've completely messed up their attempts to recruit and solve that problem. So, look, let's hope the guy sort of comes in and gives us a reasonable out, but how can you possibly conclude that that's going to solve that after 45 minutes there?
I mean, it's early to judge him, but it's strange to get hooked on your debut at half-time, certainly. Kenny, I think that the referee was nearly as poor as Celtic were at times in the game. Now, we had a great shout for a penalty just towards the end of the first half with Svanchara going down. It looked like he was pushed on the edge of the box, but when you see it back, the push does happen when both the defender's feet and his feet are inside the 18-yard box. Now, it went to VAR for a quick check. It was immediately dismissed. And at halftime, the broadcast told us that the rule when someone is being pushed and it carries on into the box is that when the contact begins, that's where the foul is given from. And if it continues into the box, then it's not a penalty. But if it's holding that starts outside the box and continues into the box, then it is a penalty. Now, that seems ludicrous to me because if the defender's hands go into Svanchara's back before they enter the box, but then the force of the push happens when they're inside the box, that seems like a very, very odd application of a rule.
Yeah, bizarre. I mean, I didn't know that rule myself until you told me about it during the game in our group chat. I don't think anyone would know that rule because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, it's clearly in the box. And the push that started just outside the box was light. I mean, 90% of the whole foul took place. It happened in an instant. But he's barely applied any force. He's then in the box and he's thrown him to the ground. What's the difference between that and holding someone just out the box and continuing to hold them into the box? I can't. It seems like an illogical way in which the rules are drafted. Look, if those are the rules and VAR have to abide by the rules, then it's not a penalty. But they need to go and readdress the rules because the big man looked like it looked like nailed on to me, and it looked like we've been done. So I don't know, Paul. It seems like a technicality of the rule book that needs to be corrected. But that would have got us out of a bit of a hole at that point, because it felt like at that point we were going to need something like a moment. We were going to need a moment in the whole game. We weren't playing with enough fluency to have any confidence around testing their keeper to get a proper goal from open play. So it felt to me when it went to VAR, I thought, well, we're going to get a little bit out of a hole here. But yeah, bizarre rule that needs to be changed, you would think.
Aye, extremely odd. It doesn't make any sense to me, that, and I'd never heard it before either. I was quite taken aback when they described there was some sort of distinction between a push and holding. First time I've ever heard that in my life. Kenny, I think Tounekti, as we say, has had a massive positive impact in the game. Do you think for Livingston during the week, Martin O'Neill will obviously look at reintroducing Dysfunction Maeda? Adamu's had a good impact, and again, he wasn't involved too much in the game, but listen, it's a moment of genius to get his equaliser. He might be in his thoughts for Wednesday as well now, competing with Svanchara. I suppose that competition is something that's healthy, because we've certainly not had that for a long period of time. How do you think he'll be thinking about those forward areas for Wednesday?
I mean, I think it almost picks itself. You would have to put, I think you've got to put Yang out on that right-hand side. We don't have any options out there still, and Yang was doing a reasonable turn in there for 6 weeks prior to signing Mavuka. I don't think you can just banish him now on the strength of Mavuka's performance there for 45 minutes. He's going to have to get on the training field. They're going to have to do a bit more with him, and he's going to have to bed himself in. I think if tonight was a league match, he probably wouldn't have started. They felt they had a bit more freedom to be experimental because it was a cup game. So I'd start Yang on the right-hand side. And Tounekti, on the strength of what he did tonight, should feel aggrieved if he's not starting on that left-hand side. So there is a decision there. Do you play Dysfunction because we know of his energy and all of the defensive work that he does and all of the positive attributes that largely he brings to that left-hand side, or do you start Tounekti on the strength of the fact that he's just almost single-handedly dug us out of a Scottish Cup nightmare? I'm not sure. You maybe still on balance go with Dysfunction, because you've just got to start thinking about building for the remainder of the run-in. What is your structure for the remainder of the run-in? We cannot keep chopping and changing wingers and changing sides we need to build some sort of rhythm and consistency in our starting 11 getting into the tail end of the season. And I think for now that means it's Dyson's jersey. But Tounekti's done himself no harm. He's breathing right down the neck of him. I quite like Tounekti. Balikwisha's an embarrassment in terms of how the club I mean, he was hiding against Auchinleck Talbot. To pay £5 million for someone that hides against a junior team is a stain on the whole club's recruitment setup. So we have no one else now, sadly. We've got Jota won't be here till next season. So it's a shootout with Dyson. Or can we play Dyson off? You know, they play Dyson off the right. He is right-footed. He can play with his right foot. Maybe that's an option. If Tounekti really finds form and consistency and you play Dyson off that right-hand side, maybe that could work with Canvara through the middle. But it would seem a bit premature to do that. It's just nice to see Tounekti coming back into a bit of form and giving us some proper competition down that left-hand side when we are bereft of any competition or any credible output at all down the right-hand side, which is entirely the fault of the recruitment setup and our inability to properly deploy funds in any reasonable way. So, yeah, difficult down that right-hand side, Paul, will continue to be, but I'd just give Dyson the nod for the running as it stands.
Yeah. In terms of some of the other performances, Kenny, I think as the game went on, I think Nygren has a big chance to make it 3-1, but aside from that, in extra time, I don't think we managed the game particularly well. I can see a couple of comments here talking about too much negativity. I don't know if they watched the game or not, but we are here to talk about the performance. The result's fantastic. We're in the next round of the Cup, but aside from that, and the couple of moments of brilliance with the goals, Kenny, there wasn't too much to be overjoyed about. We needed that third goal to sort of kill it, because as the second half extra time wore on, I thought we were really untidy. I thought some of the passing, trying to build out for the back, we gave it away loads. I don't think Donovan had a great showing when he came on. McKeown did well, but got a wee bit loose towards the end. Scales gave it away loads. I suppose Araujo was a positive back there, but I just think, I mean, we really left it to chance there in the last couple of minutes.
I didn't like when he brought Donovan on, not because Donovan isn't a capable enough part of the squad, but you don't really want to disrupt things, get into extra time unless you really need to. And Araujo was playing solidly enough that if the game gets broken, you don't want necessarily someone who's not used to the rhythm of the game coming into one of your sort of primary defensive positions. So I thought that was a bit of a mistake bringing Donovan on, unless Araujo had a knock, because he is a bit of a reliable character back there, Araujo. I think of the signings we made, when Araujo came in, a lot of fans he was a sort of first signing within the window, and their expectations around signing quality pedigree on a permanent basis were disrupted because we'd signed a sort of reserve Premier League player on loan, but he has turned out to be a success. So you're right. I think it was just the psychology of the whole thing just got on top of people towards the end. I mean, God, we had 50 seconds to ride out and we had the ball deep in their half. And I thought the game was done. And our most experienced player, I think it was McGregor, gives the ball away in the middle of the park, and then we have a chaotic last sort of 50 seconds where they nearly score twice. That opposes Martin O'Neill's the sort of resilience that he brings into the side. But look, I think that was nothing other than just the psychology of it and the nerves of it, and just the way these games play out when they're kamikaze like that. It would have been nice of them just to keep the ball in the corner. But you're right, it did show a lack of sort of professionalism towards the back end of extra time. But that's it's just symptomatic of the fact that we don't have the experience and the calm heads in the squad that we should have to get us through those pressure moments. We're relying on players who are coming in. They landed in the country for a couple of days. We're relying on people that have no real, that in their heart of hearts aren't quite at the level for Celtic. There's just too many of them across the park. That means under those pressure positions, you're never quite home and host until the final whistle goes. It doesn't feel convincing. It doesn't feel comfortable. But somehow we still survived it.
We managed to get through it. Do you think the defence is a concern going forward? Do you think that, obviously we brought in Benjamin Arthur from Brentford. I know that Simpson Pusey was here for 6 months of the season and basically never got a look in. But I think without Carter Vickers there, who I agree was performing poorly before he did get injured as well, do you think that we need a wee bit more solidity there? I don't think Trusty and Scales, at times they look solid, but then other times you're tearing your hair out with them.
I don't think it helps your offensive shape because we're both left-footed. Trusty can perform heroics in Italy and when you're under pressure, and that's great, and that proves that he is at the level. I think he is at the level. But in games like that, when your centre-halves aren't under too much pressure and you're trying to build from the back, part of our problem down that right-hand side is we can't get out from the back in a natural shape because Trusty's left-footed. But we've known, the galling thing is we've known that for so long. How it's boring talking about trying to find a right-sided centre-half. We actually had one who's now performing well in the Bundesliga and we gave him 0 minutes. It defies logic how the club has been run, Paul. But I think you're right. I do feel uncomfortable about the defence for that reason. We need a natural right-sided centre-back. I think Aroa's solved a problem for us at right-back because he looks stable and he looks solid. We're going to have Alistair Johnson back maybe in, 4 to 6 weeks. Well, you know, I think with his athleticism and the fact that he's so settled at the club, it won't take too long to return to stability, even though he's not that match sharp. So that right-hand side's probably okay. Left back is good. Tierney is coming onto a game. I think Tierney has shown the physical attributes that I wasn't sure he would be able to sustain when he first came back. Is his output in an offensive sense as dynamic as it was when he was here as a 22-year-old? Of course it's not. Is it as dynamic as it was at times when he was at Arsenal? Of course it's not, because his overarching injuries in his career have taken its toll, but I think he's given us a decent, solid output on that left-hand side, and I think Sirachi is quality. I do. I mean, he captained Uruguay in this season, and when he comes on, he's full of energy, he's full of care. I'd be looking at making a move for Sirachi if we can, for a reasonable fee, because I think him and Tierney are down there at that left-hand side are fine, but any injuries at centre-half, and the fact that we can't build from centre-half on that right-hand side is a big problem. Goalkeeper, I believe, is still a bit of a problem. I'm not convinced by Schmeichel at the moment. I think he's only ever a moment away from a mistake, and Sinsalo was not strong enough at cross balls when he comes in. Against Livingston, he was vulnerable. He didn't look very clever against Auchinleck Talbot. He didn't look too good in that first half tonight with cross balls. So there's enough ingredients back there to give us some care. Are they going to solve that by bringing in a kid from, what was it, Bournemouth, who's played 3 professional games? Of course they're not.
Brentford, yeah.
They might, but it's potluck if they do. So it's another big galling failing in a very obvious area that they should have recruited in the last 4 weeks. And they've left us in a precarious position. So I don't know, Paul. Yeah, I'm not comfortable with the defence.
Yeah, I think one of the comments there just alluded to the fact that Arthur came in on the last day, probably just to look like we'd ticked the box of signing a centre-half, because, again, it's a loan deal in the last minute that we'd never heard of all month and just popped up out of nowhere. Kenny, before we move on to talk about the context around the boycott that happened at the game today and how we might move forward, just in terms of, I mean, you're talking about how the running of the club defies logic at the minute. Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain put pen to paper on a short-term deal today. He'll join us. How do you feel about that one?
I think on balance, I feel pretty good about it. I mean, these things, it's desperate. Right, it's not a strategy. The club haven't pulled Oxlade-Chamberlain out of their sort of, overarching recruitment strategy. They've stumbled upon him because they're under a lot of pressure and they can't get any sensible deals done. So that side of it, I don't pay the board any respect for getting it done. Will it work? It can work. Kolo Toure worked. Joe Hart worked. Freddie Lundberg was a disaster. Now, when you have more forward offensive style players who've had carried recent injuries and have not played as well, it's more of a risk. Kolo Toure can come in and play reasonably stably at the back. A goalkeeper can play with a bit more stability given his age. But I think there's more of a risk in the fact that we're going to be relying on him to try and create stuff for us, because Nygren scored a lot of goals, but we know in open play he gives us limited output. We know that, apart from his goals, we know that Hatate, his head's gone. Engels is unreliable, despite someone volume at 25 million, which I think seemed odd to all of us. So there's a problem there. We need someone that can get the ball in that number 10 and make things happen, feed the striker, feed things out wide and be creative. He can do that. His career, he's a Champions League winner. Of course he can do that. So do I think for the fact that there's no transfer fee, I can't imagine. The guy's seriously wealthy. He's not going to be hanging us out. We're going to be paying him 50, 60 grand a week. It'll be within our wage structure. So for a few months' wages, is it worth doing? I think it is. I think it's a good thing. I think it gives it a shot in the arm for the fans because it gives some excitement, and we need a shot in the arm in the stands because the stands are in disarray. So I think on balance, it's a good move. It's unclear whether we'll get the output that we need, but if we get 80% of what he's capable of, that could tip the balance in terms of winning the title. So I'd be looking to give him minutes quick. He's trained with Arsenal for 3 months. His physical fitness seems fine. Arsenal said they were looking to sign him. That will just be a bit of rhetoric to try and get him a move. There's no way he's going to play in an Arsenal side. But if we can give him game time quickly, I'd be looking to give him 20 minutes in the next match. I'd have him on the bench at Livingston, and hopefully if we put Livingston to bed quite early, I'd get him on as quickly as we can. I'd get him in that sort of cam position and the central attack midfield position and just see how he does, because we need something in there. So I don't know, hard to predict, Paul, but I think on balance it's something that gives us at least an opportunity to change things that wouldn't have been there had we just not pursued it.
Yeah, just on the free transfers, I don't think people will forgive me if I don't mention Aaron Moy, because there's about 5 comments coming in there to remind us that Aaron Moy was I think his
attitude, a lot of it will come down to attitude, Paul, right? It's just an interview, right? You're going on instinct, but it looks like his head is in the right place for it. It's about him being... Freddie Ljungberg's head was... I had no conviction in Freddie Ljungberg when he came to Celtic from Arsenal in a similar position. I thought his attitude was really bad. But it looks like his attitude's going to be right. And if anything else, when Callum McGregor is in that dressing room and he's trying to get them over the line under pressure, and he looks to his left and he sees a Champions League winner, it helps the chemistry of the dressing room. It should hopefully collectively give them a bit of belief because of his experience. Now, that needs to be accompanied by output, but I think that's going to be a big part of it as well. It's a good sort of strength for the chemistry of the team, and I think that's a big reason why Anil was so keen to get him in.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see where he's going to play. There's a couple of comments, and I seen this in the video yesterday, saying that he was playing more as a 6 for Besiktas. I would think he would play in an 8 position.
That might be the case, Paul, because of his age and the way he is. But I
didn't think so. I've never seen him play as a 6. I would expect him to be an 8. But
I think that would be okay if he could play a little bit deeper as well. I don't think that's a bad thing, because McGregor's holding the whole thing back there deep on his own. And we know that McGregor can give us a bit more. If McGregor can play with a little bit more freedom in an offensive sense, it will help the system. So I don't mind if he plays a little bit deeper as well. We just need to get him to play with the quality that he's got and instill a bit of sort of experience and belief around the squad. And I think there's a good chance that will happen.
Yeah, I agree. Now, Kenny, finally on today, we had the boycott. I think by the looks of things, the attendance was about 25,000. It's impossible to try and predict what any outcome would be of these meetings that are said to be taking place between some fan groups and the club this week. The difficulty, in my opinion, is that I don't really think the club agree or are on the same page about the changes that have to be made, and so that makes an impasse very, very likely. Now that I'm talking about the fundamental things we're discussing here, about the recruitment setup, about the way they approach transfers, the lack of preparation, the lack of vision that the club has, not even the sort of low-hanging stuff about letting the fans back in, all that, the other stuff. But if I was, I suppose, to ask you your opinion on it, it would be, what do you think the club could change that could unite everybody and get us to where we need to be and to restore? I think the main thing here is restoring belief of everybody, me and you sitting here on this video, about where the club is going, the direction of the club, how it's run, how it does things, how it's going to make this wealth that it's sitting on pay to put the football club in a better position moving forward. What would you, I know I've sprung this on you, but is there 3 changes that are top of your mind that you think if Dermot Desmond came out now or in the summer, it's not going to be now, is it? He's let it go this long and said, right, here's what's happening. We're going to change this, and this. What would that be to get people back together and on side?
I think it needs to be
even possible?
Well, look, I think it needs to be a phased correction because they're too deep in it. I think Nicholson's position's untenable. It's as blunt as that. His performance has been diabolical. He's clearly out of his depth, and when someone's out of their depth, it doesn't change. We're not here to try and educate people in senior executive positions in the club and coach them and hope they improve. No, we need finished articles running the club. He's out his depth. Are they going to empty the boardroom in February when they're 3 points behind in the league? If they'd have wanted to do that, they'd have done it by now. So I think it's phased. The first thing they can do right now is let the fans back in. That's one thing that would make a meaningful change, I think, in the atmosphere of the stadium, but in the mind's eye of all of the other supporters like me and you who are not part of ultra groups. I think letting them all back in would just help the chemistry amongst everyone and get the atmosphere back into the stadium. It's vital. The Falkirk manager actually in his press conference cited how much of an advantage it was to his own team before a game that we didn't have our core supporters in. That is an humiliating position for us to persist with. I don't know what they think. Well, how many 20 games now they've been out? What do they think's going to happen? It's unrealistic. The Green Brigade are going to be back. They're not going to be banished from Celtic Park permanently. Had they been banished for 2 or 3 games and brought back in, what difference would that make to bring them in after 25 games? The only difference is after 25 games, the relationship is even more destroyed and broken. It's an implausible situation that they need to show leadership in and address and be real about. Have a sense of realism about what they're trying to achieve. Put it to bed and get the fans back in. They could do that in the morning if they want. They won't do it that quickly, but I think they're maybe running out of rope. And with 25,000 fans at home in 3 seconds of getting out the Scottish Cup, at what point do you say, fair enough, we need to act? They can do that first. In the summer, they need to get rid of Michael Nicholson. You need the chief executive leads everything. They need a new chief executive. Dermot Desmond needs to make that call. He must be scratching his head about it. I know he's stubborn, and I know he's absent, and I know he seems a bit divorced from everything. But he's not moronic, right? Surely he's not blind to the obvious. I would hope that he'd be moved on in the summer. That's the second phase of it. The third phase of it, Paul, if we want to get real sort of deep running change, it's when Desmond moves on. That's when it really changes. You get different ownership, different levels of investment, different levels of overall vision. That won't change necessarily with a new chief executive because we know the power that Desmond will have over that chief executive. There will be limits to how they can operate if he is staying there. Now, the concerning thing is his son is there. We saw how out of touch and humiliating he was at that AGM. He played a huge part in the AGM collapsing. That was his input to the AGM. So I don't think you'll get ultimate change until the Desmonds sell their shares and we have people who are more progressive and more open-minded and more financially astute to deploy funds in a way that speculates a little bit to accumulate. All of that won't happen unless he moves. So I think there are different phases to this. But for this run-in, we need to get the fans back in. That's the most immediate thing that can happen. And in the summer, the board needs emptied. I think the actions of the fans collective have been fruitful so far because Peter Lawwell was moved. I feel a bit conflicted about Peter Lawwell because he's had incredible output in terms of his time here, but it was time for him to move, and he moved in part because of that, no doubt. They might not have been as reactive around Nancy and Tisdale, with the fans not been breathing down their neck. I think that had an effect there. So I think there is, and I think that I can just sense that they're feeling uncomfortable with this stand-at interim chairman at the moment. You can just the way in which he's communicating during the week, he is weak. You can feel that he's under pressure, and he's probably going to succumb to the need to bring the fans back in. So I think all of that is good and it's healthy, and it's credit to people like you actually for not going to the games. Right? I have made a personal decision to keep going to the games. I think people's personal decisions around all that should be left alone. But there's the overarching thing that binds us all is a desire for the club to perform in the way that it can and have the ambition that it should have. And it's so devoid of it at the moment. So time will tell. We do not know, but I think the fans' action is strong. I suspect the Green Brigade will be back in quite soon. And it could be a defining outcome for the title. I think it's that important.
It could be, and I think in the immediate short term, that is what they can do. Let the supporters back in, and maybe we can put a pin in the action because everybody wants to get behind the team to try and push them over the line to a title. and then we'll deal with everything else later. My huge concern is that Dermot Desmond is vindictive. He doesn't want to listen to the supporters. He's certainly not going to change the way he runs the football club, because we can see the flaws in it, and we've actually had enough of it. So we're sort of standing up and making a noise about it. It's probably going to entrench his position more than it is change it. So that's the concern when you have someone like that making the decisions and running the football club. So I think probably the best we can hope for, while Dermot Desmond is still calling all the shots, is that yes, Michael Nixon may well be replaced, but he'll be replaced by someone of a similar ilk, perhaps more qualified, but his number one sort of qualification will be loyalty and the trust of Dermot Desmond. And then we can maybe change one or two other things. The way the club recruits would be helped by a director of football who has loosened purse strings and real responsibility and control over decision-making power about who is recruited and when they're recruited. That, again, will be blocked by Dermot Desmond because he doesn't want to cede that sort of power. So I think the medium term does look bleak in terms of trying to get to a place where everybody's happy and everybody can move forward united and sort of be back on side with under Desmond's ownership. I think it's near impossible to get agreement on all sides on that. But I agree with you that they have to get the supporters back in, and then maybe we can get to a point where everybody's in the stadium and we're all behind the team to push them onto the title. Everybody wants to do that, but the club have made it very, very difficult for us throughout the course of this season. So, Kenny, we're in the next round. We got there by hook or by crook. A couple of moments of brilliance from Tounekti and one from Junior Adamu. I suppose just your closing thoughts on the games next week, Livingston, and then I think we're away to Kilmarnock, and there's big games elsewhere in the title race because Rangers go to Motherwell during the week, Hibs play Hearts on Tuesday night, and then Rangers play against Hearts next weekend at Ibrox as well. So it's a big week.
As you would think, Wednesday might be, it feels right for maybe gaining a bit of ground somewhere in the title race, because we've got the easiest fixture on paper in the league, and Rangers and Hearts have got pretty tough outings against Hibs and Motherwell. I think we can't. We've got this cobbled together team of infiltrated by loans at the moment. That is a pretty vulnerable sort of ship to steer. We've got to quite quickly determine who our best 11 is and play that best 11 in a structured way going through this run-in, because it's not going to work experimenting playing loans in different positions and hoping things come off like we did today. We were 3 seconds away from losing at home to Dundee. So we've got to very quickly, and I do believe that Maloney and O'Neill will give us the best chance of this, figure out what our best structure is and our best starting 11 is, and it's so central to that as striker now. I think there's something there with Kavankra Adu. I think he's shown enough in terms of dropping deep, his ability to score in the air. We're just not feeding him in the right way. So I'd persist with him. Adamu, it was only 1 touch tonight, right? Hard to know, if but it's going to give him a shot in the arm. If we can maybe play him in a bit more somewhere along that front line. But we've got to just play in with more consistency in team selection, with more consistency in output, and see where we go. But on Wednesday, and I would start that on Wednesday, because it's a chance I would play our strongest 11 on Wednesday. I wouldn't experiment. And it's a chance to get a few goals on the board, and it's a chance to get a feel-good factor back. And it doesn't matter. And I would get Oxlade Chamberlain a few minutes and see if we can start to bleed him into the team in a more accelerated way than you would normally with someone, of his ilk, because I think we're a bit desperate for that real spark and magic in the middle of the park that's been missing, and he might have it in his feet. So I don't know. I don't feel too good about it, Paul. I feel uncomfortable about it. I think it's going to go way down to the wire, and I think that it wouldn't be Martin O'Neill's fault if we had an off night at some point, and it just makes it a step too far. There is no blame laid at his door. He's been hung out to dry by what he's been handed. We've dragged someone out of retirement in their mid-70s and we've given them nothing, and we're assuming they're going to deliver a league title. That's the most galling thing of all, because he's a club legend and his legacy should not in any way be tarnished or reflected by the way we've actually treated him since he came in from a boardroom level. So the fans just need to get behind him. It's possible. It's possible we could come out of this with a double. I think Stuttgart would be a stretch too far. but we're going to need to pretty quickly identify what our best 11 is and really push through with that for the majority of the remainder of the games this season.
Yeah, I agree. There you go. That's it for tonight. Thank you for joining us throughout the course of this live stream. I'll see you on Monday for the build up to that game against Livingston. Thank you.